The following presentation is an excerpt from the 2022 Brightsquid Privacy Conference and Workshop for Healthcare. The annual conference is a day of comprehensive privacy updates, planning, and thought leadership available for subscribers to Brightsquid Privacy Services.
Chris McDonald is the Director of Forensic Services at PricewaterhouseCoopers. He's based in Toronto. He was also a detective constable with the Peel Regional Police from 2004 to 2018. And he worked in the Technological Crimes Unit as a computer forensic investigator for about 6 years. The Internet Child Exploitation Unit as an investigator for about 6 years. He's qualified as an expert witness in the Superior Court of Justice in Ontario. He's awarded a Canadian Forces decoration. He has a Master's of Public Administration, a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, and has previously had the IACIS Computer Forensic Certified Examiner certification. And he's provided lectures on the topics of electronic crime to a wide range of audiences. Judges throughout Canada. I know, Chris, you've spoken in Europe and different places. So really happy to have Chris here to tell us about what's happening in the world of cyber threats today. So Chris, take it away. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jeff, and thanks for having me. And thanks for everybody who's joined in, because if I could just echo very quickly what they're saying. Privacy is absolutely a very, very hot topic in industry, especially a lot of the clients that we have come through the doors of PwC. So we'll get into that a little bit, but again, thanks for having me. Yeah, again, I come from a law enforcement background. So what I do is I run our cyber forensic investigations unit across Canada. So what that is digital forensic investigations, and as well as incident response. So that's going to be malware investigations, could be a larger cyber attack, things like that are going to go on. So anytime we have to deploy our individuals, I'm usually the one overseeing that deployment. So PwC's purpose is to build trust in society and to solve important problems. The way that we help with that is that we're there to help clients before, during, and after they suffer a cyber crisis. So fraud and cybercrime for years have kind of gone hand in hand. As you know, this looks similar to one of Jeff's slides a minute ago. It's almost ubiquitous online now, or anytime we look on a newspaper, it's almost just glazes over our eyes at this point. The fact that funds were stolen, be it from internal or external, it's sort of it's almost, dare I say, boring now to hear that $1.6 million was stolen. Although it's not boring if you're involved in it. So, but what I would say is that the role of privacy has really come up to the idea of fraud and cybercrime. If you even look internally for PricewaterhouseCoopers, those different capabilities within PricewaterhouseCoopers used to be separate. We've now amalgamated about a year and a half ago to being one unit of cyber, financial crime, and privacy. So it's called one, everybody likes their acronyms, one CP and FC, C, cyber, P, privacy, and FC is financial crime. Because you start to see, is it opportunistic or is it strategic? The threat actors are always looking to usually make a buck, but are they just basically doing the kind of fire and forget? Are they just sending it out like the old school spam that you could tell was not sent to you? It was sent to thousands of people all at once, hoping that somebody would click on it. Or is it something that's a little bit more specific, looking to be tailored and hit a certain sector, an organization, or anything like that? So there's lots of different malware that are out there that are actually specifically designed to hit the healthcare sector. So we see different hackers will kind of discuss things on groups. We see a lot, for instance, hackers might discuss the idea that the educational sector, they say, with no data backups, poor email filtering, or unpatched systems in their environment, it makes them easy potential targets. So students also fall victim to phishing emails, often as they don't have as they lack proper security awareness training. So they are definitely getting more strategic than opportunistic. They want to narrow into an industry for very specific reasons, and they're getting very, very good at it. Everything is evolving. A few different stats on this. I won't go through all of them, but essentially, if I could draw your eyes into the middle, if we are helping with mitigating cyber risks to an organization, those are the three pillars that we're really helping. One is going to be the legal and regulatory risks, another one is going to be reputational, and the third is going to be operational. The operational one is normally the first one that everybody thinks of. If their systems get locked up or something like that, they can't do their job. You can't have the clinic running properly, things like that. The operational things is usually first to mind of how much the impact as of right away is going to have your business suffer. But what we do is help everybody actually understand the idea of legal and regulatory risks. You're going to have the privacy commissioners of your province and of Canada become involved very quickly, especially if you're in the financial industry as well. You have regulators in that side of things. You also have a lot of counterparties, especially in the healthcare, where if we're talking about records of patients, now you have, if you've lost, a million records, you have a million different people who could take legal action against you. And then the reputational, which is a hot topic, obviously. Nobody wants to lose any money. On the operational side, it could be crippling for your clinic. But what could be even more crippling is if you have a bad reputation for having, say, lackluster policies or having been, responsible for something that could have happened. So there's just an interesting one. 64% of CEOs say that how we, that being the CEOs, manage people's data will differentiate them. So it's definitely something that's coming up on everybody's radar. And I would even say that stat in the healthcare industry for healthcare CEOs, I would almost gather to say that if that was specific towards them, it would be 100%. So cyber and fraud. Those are very hard to differentiate because we have internal fraud and external fraud. I know there's a lot on the screen. Ignore most of it except for the little dotted box on the one side, because that's what we're really talking about here. And I almost would rather see cyber being across the top and having fraud go down, because really these cyber attacks cut against all these different types of frauds that you can see, because it's really about the way that they try to attack and get into your system. So here's some out of our PwC Global Economic Crime and Fraud Survey. There's about, I think it was about 8,000 companies across Canada that put in some information about their cyber attacks. So we see by far the number one method of attack is phishing. Then we have malware, and it kind of goes down from there. But by far, it's email phishing that ends up getting into it. And I have some stories about email phishing in a minute. But essentially, that's one of the easiest way, because unfortunately, everybody has fallen victim to either not thinking about it or being a very tricky threat actor who is tailoring things in order to increase their chance of you clicking on that. And we've seen some really, really sophisticated attacks as of late. So one of those is business email compromise. So we get about one of these a month, and over the last 2 years, I would fathom to say about $250 to $300 million of just cash has been wired to China in the last, just out of our clients over the last few years. You may think that this, that your clinic might not have access to that sort of money that they would be looking for, but you'd be surprised at how many will try to get in, find out how you pay your invoices, how you even purchase your office supplies, recreate that through your vendor, and end up, either you're going to be a victim or it hits your reputation because you were used in order to defraud somebody else. So essentially, the first step is they don't even need to do anything. They can just do some social engineering attacks. They can look at LinkedIn. They can look online to see who actually works in the clinic. Then they can try to gain entry. So that's going to be seeking out credentials by, usually, as we saw on the last screen, that's going to be phishing attacks. A lot of times where they're trying to send you something that looks very, from the outside, they send it in, it looks very real. You click on something and sometimes enter in your username and password, or it might launch some sort of malware on your computer, and then that's their entry into their system. Then they gather things around once they're in, try to find out who's in control, who authorizes invoices, all that kind of stuff. At the same time, they're collecting sensitive and confidential information. Then they try to monetize those. It's either going to be by impersonating somebody, impersonating you to defraud a vendor, or impersonating one of your vendors to defraud you, or they could just go hard at you and try to extort you because they have been in your system in ransomware. We see about 30 days before they're rummaging around your system, collecting your information before they actually start getting noisy and doing things like locking up your system or actually letting you know that they're there by extorting you. So what we're seeing with ransomware is that they're actually double-barreled, meaning what they, just like the last one, they're in your system, they're in there for about 30 days rummaging around, trying to see what access they have, and they're trying to be very quiet. They don't want to set off any alarms so that PwC comes running into them in order to start locking down systems and things like that. They want to be quiet, slow, methodical. They're in there for about a month, then they get noisy. They lock you up, they tell you you have to pay in order to decrypt. So you can see with some of the broken English on here and the ransomware, that's normally what they're looking for, is for you to send them Bitcoin or Monero, another privacy coin. So that is what everybody sort of understands ransomware, but it's really developed into being double-barreled. So what they're doing for those 30 days is getting, for instance, healthcare records, holding on to those, then they get noisy. They extort you for this, but then they put up a shaming website, as they're called, which means that they will get in, they'll put up on one of their dark web websites to say the following institutions or businesses have been, we have some of their data and the clock is on to say that they have to pay, or we're going to release all that data onto the dark web for certain amounts of money. So it's a second kind of barrel of extortion. One is just to get your systems back. Maybe everybody on here has taken the steps beforehand to make sure your systems are backed up at a good frequency. You have them offline, meaning that they can't be affected by this malware. So you think operationally, we could just wipe and start fresh. We'll just burn it down. Out of the flames of the phoenix, we'll emerge stronger. But you still have this huge privacy issue if they've gathered your information and hold it on somewhere. So that's what we're calling a double barrel. One is being the operation. Your systems are actually locked up. You see this on your screen saying you have 2 days, 3 days left to pay a lot of money. The other side is if you don't pay, we promise we're going to put this information online. So there's a lot of trust that happens there too. If you pay, are they actually going to unlock your systems for you? That's a big question we get in society, or sorry, with our customers. I won't spend too much on here, but essentially ransomware timelines, this is what they really go down to. This is not necessarily meant for you to know how to respond to a ransomware. It just gives you an idea that once your detection happens, then things start happening. And if you were to ever go through a tabletop exercise or something like that, which we do for, say, financial institutions a lot, you get to see the holes in your thinking and your process. So it is a useful exercise to go before you actually have to go through this, just to see how it goes, because some conversations are better had up front rather than in the middle of crisis. And that's a big thing that we see. That's we come in to help with crisis, not only with the ones and zeros and getting things all in line. It's to help everybody sort of calm down with this, this crisis that's going on, help people communicate a little bit better, because nobody acts perfectly in the middle of a crisis, unfortunately. So we're there as a kind of a third-party intermediary. We get in the way and sort of, help to try to calm everybody down and help step them through one of their either playbook or their instant response plan. So hopefully they can, as we see in step 9, emerge stronger. So pay to not pay, and I won't bother going through every part of this, but essentially this is a big conversation within industry because usually and I don't take this quick talk here as I'm saying you should pay or not. That's really up to the industry. I know that if you talk to anybody, it's common to say never pay, and you'll hear that a lot out of financial institutions. They'll try to say that. Law enforcement will say never pay, but you really are kind of caught here because especially when they have patient records, right? So the idea of payment is a little bit twofold. So here's what happens when you have to pay Bitcoin. So this is a little small, so you don't need to see it. Just understand that it's flowing from left to right. We have a negotiator on the left-hand side who had to pay 15 Bitcoin. This is from one of our cases. They paid 15 Bitcoin to a threat actor, and then we see that 15 Bitcoin start to splinter off. The top and the bottom are groups of addresses on the Bitcoin blockchain, which received a lot of Bitcoin. Out of those two things, we're looking at about $2.4 billion from everybody who's been locked up who decided to pay have gone into those wallets. So the name of the game is to watch that money flow, as we see in the middle there. What is that? A hexagon. That it went into a legitimate exchange called KuCoin, and that's where these guys get caught. These ransomware individuals, is that we can watch every step on the chain to see when it goes into somewhere that we can hit with a subpoena if I were still law enforcement, or some sort of Norwich order or something else, some legal instrument, in order to have them provide us with the information of this person or this organized crime group. But there's big business. If we look at this one here, Mespinoza is or Mespinoza, I guess it's called, is a medium threat ransomware. It hits education, hit a little bit of healthcare sector and some finance. It's still active, but I mean, look at that. We're seeing receiving exposure. So there was only 8 transfers that came in for $2.7 million or USD, so whatever that is, just over $3 million Canadian out of 8 transfers. 8 ransoms paid was that amount of money. So it is big business. So it's sort of like when to pay, when not to pay. Do you just restore from backups and carry on? Sometimes that might not be an option, especially in healthcare. In your clinic, can you really just destroy all the backups for your patients? If you don't think if you only did backups every 2 months, there's a lot of patient information for those appointments that you had that you might not be able to. That's not a good idea to just blow away. So you might need to get them back for whatever reason, and that's specific to your own context. Do you have backups? Are they infected as well? So some clients decide to pay in order to gain clarity on what was stolen. So we have seen that a lot, is that they say, we have data, we see on our side through our digital forensics and incident response investigation, we see a large bubble, say, of data leave your organization through a certain, if we have these nerdy tools that we use that say there was, 8 gigabytes that left the organization over this 30 days, and it's never happened before. So we suspect that that's threat actor. So we can see 8 gigabytes, but is that a couple of X-rays, or is that a lot of data of clients? Sometimes you're left not really knowing until you pay. Then they give you the information with a promise that they'll destroy it. It's up to you whether or not you take a promise from an international crime syndicate, but that's up to you. So we have seen that, just to get some clarity on what was stolen. So it empowers your privacy officer to make those, and your legal your legal risks, in order to make informed decisions on what's happening. Others decide to do it to mitigate the risk, to at least take the word of the threat actor that they're going to delete it. Are they going to delete it? We haven't seen firm data. It all depends on who is actually has taken control of your systems. But there's many reasons to pay and just as many to not. So you are very much in between a rock and a hard place. Have those kind of discussions early is my my recommendation at this point. Because once things start getting up on the dark web, they're really kind of they're cheap and easily accessible. We see some things on here. Usually this blows away most people. I'm sorry, I'm going to look over to my other screen. Some credit card, credit card details with accounts balances up to $5,000 go for, in 2020, 2021, went for $24 each. Like it's mind blowing how cheap some information are, and you absolutely can get driver's license, medical information, things like that, by just purchasing it from the dark web. So we use our cyber threat intelligence units to go out and try to find that information in order to try to, help our clients proactively understand that things are out there. Because if you haven't been attacked, it may very well be that you just don't know. I don't use that as a scare tactic. I just say it very much, it's very true that sometimes they don't get noisy. They get in there, they do some things, but then their access is severed. So they can't run a malware or something like that. So they're just left with trying to make money somehow by selling that information they were able to get at. So I think I'm coming up to time, am I not, Jeff? But oh, that's the wrong keyboard.
We can keep going. We got a couple minutes to stretch it out a bit.
Yeah, so essentially what to do. This presentation is not necessarily what to do. I know that's why everybody's here, is to learn more about privacy, and Jeff and team are going to assist with that learning path. So I'm not here necessarily to do that, but my mantra for helping people, usually when we're doing a lot of stuff before these type of crises, is in times of crisis not to meet critical people. So I live and die by that. I say this all the time because, just as I said before, when you're in the middle of a crisis, you're just notified that your systems are locked up. You don't even know if healthcare information was exfiltrated. If you know and say, trust me because we have a retainer in and we are, we meet quarterly, it's a lot easier to navigate those kind of stressful situations. And that's why I, as a digital forensic and incident response, that's why I love the rise of privacy officers, because they really do understand where the data is, where the sensitive information is, because it used to be that they're going in just to get the money, just to make you pay Bitcoin or to make you pay an invoice that's false so they can wire it out to China, things like that. It used to be financially based. Now they see that extortion works really well because of how much privacy is in the limelight in order to extort a company for their private information. So just like we know that accountants know where all the accounts are for the money, privacy officers are really, really good for us to get there, especially if we're cold and we, in the sense that we have never seen this company before, signing in letters of engagement, they're going through a crisis. I always want to talk to the privacy officer. They're going to know where things are, at least at a high level, and what types of information are available, so we can look for the worst case scenario if the threat actor got everything. So, again, I start off by saying good for you for educating yourself in this sort of world, because it is very, very important to really understand this world so that you can navigate cyber incident response, or a cyber crisis, in order to sort of emerge stronger. Because again, the legal and regulatory framework of mitigating those risks, the operational risk, which you might be able to recover from fairly quickly, but then it's reputational risk is the big one. I know everybody on the call probably are very keen on helping people. That's probably why you got into this business. So you would rather they didn't go somewhere else because they think that you're not handling their data well. So overall, I could take some questions, or Jeff, I know that you want to jump in, and I'm around if you'd like to take some questions after. But I think that I'm around at the time you had allotted. So thank you very much for letting me sort of ramble about what we're seeing from the industry. And it's I have to say that just one last time echo what Rohit said up front, was that we're seeing a huge increase in the role, and it's almost what I'm seeing, what we used to see, these chief information officer and chief security officers were sort of secondary in the C-suite of executives. They were sort of like they didn't have that good meaty role that the CEO, CFO, things like that had. They were almost second tier. They were brought up because of the cyber threats, and we're seeing that exact same thing happen. Everybody wants a CPO now, a chief privacy officer. It's extremely important. So thanks everybody for joining.
Great, awesome. Thanks so much, Chris. Really, really helpful information. We always kind of start off these presentations or finish these kind of presentations with, we don't really mean to scare you, but it ends up kind of being scary. So and I know we've got a couple of questions here, and Pooja is kind of fielding those. Pooja, do you want to just chime in and and send some of the questions over here. We'll see see if we can get some answers.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So we have one question for Chris. It's from Scott Campbell. It sounds like electronic charting can be a risk. Are paper charts safer?
Yeah, it is the age-old sort of, do you keep things offline or online, whether or not it's kind of old analog in the sense of paper, but it's certainly, I don't think anybody can necessarily get away from turning things electronic. You know, it's whatever you would like to do for your own business will help support, but essentially it's about more, everybody's digitizing just about everything. It's about protecting that information through appropriate firewalls, or if you can keep things offline as long as possible, that's the best. We see that even with say cryptocurrency exchanges. They get a lot of money in, so it's the same sort of like valuable information, but then when they store that, they're storing all those coins offline so that an attacker can't get in and get them. So any opportunity that you have, if you are digitizing things, to keep systems offline or backups offline, definitely, but systems offline that of information you don't need to keep right away, I would absolutely suggest to take those precautions, put appropriate firewalls in order to limit the amount of kind of surface area they attack, meaning that the amount of computers that have access to it that they can be able to get in. So is it safer? Can I hit it right on? I guess, and on one side, paper is safer, because it is further away from the fingers of an attacker, but is it operationally needed in order to have access to those files so that you can appropriately service your clients, or your patients, I should say? You know, I would probably gather that you might want to keep on digital, but that's where putting appropriate safeguards becomes very important.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a great point, right? And like I said, you know, it's easy to be scared off digital technology with all of this stuff happening in the world, and it can be really intimidating. You know, I think in the realm of healthcare, you know, the practice of healthcare really is the exchange of information, and it becomes increasingly difficult to operate in that realm if you're just sticking to paper. It makes it almost impossible. So, you know, we're in this catch-22 where we really have to digitize in order to function, and we have to take all of the precautions we can. And you know, I'll point out that you know, even the OIPC, and Chris, I'm sure you can echo this. Nobody expects breaches to never happen. Your job is to take reasonable measures to prevent expected or reasonably anticipated threats. If you're doing everything you can, then that's really all you can do. So, you know, the old saying, if all you can do is all you can do, then all you can do is enough. But if you're not taking the proper precautions, that's when the trouble really kind of sets in after the fact. Is that what you see, Chris?
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, that's a great point, that even when we talk about notifications as well to the privacy commissioners, you know, a lot of times our clients who have never dealt with a privacy commissioner have this idea that they don't want to notify anybody. Let's keep it, let's fix it, and then we'll let people know later. But I tell you, that's where then they're always surprised at the reaction from the privacy commissioners, because we usually it's the legal counsel that will do a notification just to say, heads up, we have a situation on the go, but we're on it. And they say, thank you very much. And it's like, well, they're not going to send people and sit in our office for the next week to watch us. They're like, no. They expect all this is going on. They just want to know. They don't want to be the ones reading it in the paper, because then things go bad. Then they know that you're not handling it well, and notifying the proper people in order to make sure that you are doing the right things.
Great. Pooja, I think we have a couple more questions for Chris.
Yes, we do. So this one, I hope, Scott, you got your answer. Chris has given clarity. The next question is from Michelle. The question is, what about insurance? Is there a specific type we should have?
Yeah, definitely. Cyber insurance is a big thing right now, and all these policies, the underwriting policies of those policies are changing a lot. We're seeing a lot. If I've talked about the purpose of PwC's CFI, cyber forensic investigation, is before, during, and after a crisis. we're seeing a lot of the before things happen at the request of cyber insurance. So a lot of companies are going to different organizations in order to get cyber insurance. They're doing things like tabletop exercises, privacy assessments, all these sort of things in order to provide that information to the underwriter in order to lower their fees. What you have to really do is have somebody go through those policies to make sure that they adhere to what your kind of biggest threats are. If your biggest threats are going to be like a malware investigation where you might get a ransomware, say at the idea of students are notoriously easy to kind of trick by clicking on links. So in an educational, like a university, they may want to spend a little bit more time making sure that the cyber insurance is going to pay for the Bitcoin ransom if they decide to pay, things like that. Because you'll see that a lot of those cyber insurance are actually kind of they're very specific. They're getting a lot more specific. They used to be sort of, we'll cover you for a cyber incident, but now you have to really get into the weeds of your policy. So it's hard for me to answer exactly what type of policy you would need, because it really does depend on what type of clinic and it's best to have like a cyber assessment of some sort, whether that's by somebody else or a framework you decide on your own, and then align that with those needs with the appropriate cyber insurance policy. But those also help with, what we sit on a few cyber insurance panels, meaning if they become your 911, you get a hit with a ransomware or something, you call them, they end up coming in. They'll send a lawyer and they'll send an instant response firm like, say, PwC. So it's nice to have those, they're on sort of like, it almost becomes a retainer because they send practitioners to you. So there's a bunch of different options. So it's hard to exactly, without knowing your specific needs, but that's my advice, is make sure that you know what it is, what the highest risks are, and therefore align your cybersecurity policy towards that.